hitting the button.
Okay,
Hopefully it'll go live here. Hopefully it works.
hey Tammy, before we go live, ask her if she could clean the other side of my periodontal. I could save a lot of money.
We're probably already live.
Delver should be chiming in on that.
Did it go live yet?
It says we're live. I don't know if that.
Okay. All right, I'll hit record and we're probably ready to go.
Okay.
All right.
I'd like to call the Committee for Economic Development and Airport to order for Tuesday, February 16th, 2021. Members present are Ms. Earlston and Mr. Ivy. Could I please have a motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from our last meeting.
Ms.
I'll
Earlston,
second.
motion, and Mr. Ivy seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries and the minutes are approved. We all seem to be having, or at least Julie and I, some internet issues. So unfortunately, I don't have the agenda in front of me. Julie, could you kind of state those, what the agenda is currently?
Hold on a second. I'll have to. Yes, I can here in just a second. I have to pull them up as well.
Sure.
Okay. The agenda items are the appointment of the Galleon Port to the Galleon Port Authority.
Okay.
That is resolution 2021-7. And then we have council appointments to CRA, which we have to decide who we want to do. And then the mayor has appointments he can talk about, but we
Okay.
don't have to do any approval of any of his appointments. He just appoints and can, and then that's all I have on the agenda.
Okay.
Then other
Are
business after that.
there any additions to the stated agenda? If not, I'd like a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
I'll be happy to make the motion to present the agenda as
Mr.
presented.
Ivy makes the motion
And I'll second that.
and Ms. Earlston seconds. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Agenda as presented is approved. So the first item is appointment to the Port Authority. Mr. Mayor, would you like to take that away?
Thanks, Doc. We've had since early on in the port's history a vacancy. I don't off the top of my head know when Mr. Cochran submitted his resignation, but since that time, the port's been functioning one member down. And so what I'd like to get that position filled. And so my recommendation to the committee and hopefully on to council next Tuesday is to have former Auditor Trish take over that term, that appointment.
Okay. Any questions or comments from Ms. Earlston or Mr. Ivy?
I'll just say that when we were working on these appointments a long time ago, I was very strongly felt that I wanted somebody on there with a background like Mr. Trish's or Mr. Cochran. So I'm glad that someone like that is able to step up and fill that for us, because I think that's a great asset to the port.
Agreed.
If I were to ask any question, I would just ask, has the rest of the Port Authority members been consulted, and what are their thoughts about this appointment?
No, and it's a mayoral appointment approved by city council. So no was the answer to your question.
If there are no questions or comments, I would like to forward this ordinance on to full council for consideration.
I'll second that. Oh, that doesn't need a second, does it?
I guess I made the motion accidentally. I was calling for a motion. I'm sorry. Ms. Earlston, would you like to make that motion?
Yes, I'll make that motion to send that on to full council.
Ms. Earlston makes the motion. I'll
I guess
second it. And all in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. And the resolution for Mr. Trish's appointment to the Port Authority will go on to full council. Next item for discussion, I don't believe there's an ordinance or a resolution attached to it, is CRA board membership. And again,
No,
I'm sorry.
the only ordinance I sent was like the previous ordinance from 2016 where we
Right.
put Gail and Shirley on
Right,
as, and they were both council at large at the time. I mean, and that ordinance said that they would stay on until a further ordinance from council, but neither one of them are on council, so it's up to you guys what you guys want to do and put somebody else on there or leave them on. That's entirely up to whatever council wants to do, so.
you know, is the requirement, Mr. Mayor, could you just kind of briefly describe what the CRA is again, maybe for Mr. Ivy, actually myself, for a review of what the CRA actually is?
A refresher, if you will. It's
Yes.
best understood as tax abatement. It enables us to reduce property taxes on projects that aren't industrial. In this case, why this is coming up after a period of dormancy with this housing advisory council, I think is the exact term. I don't have that ordinance in front of me there right now, but
Yeah.
any event is in connection with the Mill Creek assisted living project. So they have they hope that there'll be some sort of reduction offered them on property tax. So that's why we're talking about it now. Second thing I'd want to say is that the law sets up 2 appointments for the mayor and then 2 appointments of council. And just as Julie outlined, they would continue until or unless you wanted to make a replacement. So I just wanted to let you all know that. Then the last thing that will happen is when that group gets together, they'll pick 2 additional members, kind of at large, picked from the membership that the mayor and the council appoint. So
are Gail and Shirley still eligible?
I think they are. They're eligible if they want to. Yeah, I don't think either is disqualified.
Has anyone consulted their feelings on that?
Nope.
Okay,
No, I have not.
all right.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, Doc. I think it's really within your prerogative as a committee or as a council, overall, who you want to appoint or just stay with what's already in place. But I do know, gosh, I can't think of the gentleman's name this evening. I'm embarrassed to say that, but I know they've been in contact with the building inspector and they'd really like to get this process moving.
Right. We got an email from Natasha regarding that
Okay.
application from Mill Creek. And I know that we had discussed it at some point, either last year or the year before the world drove off the cliff. So
Yeah.
glad that things are active on that particular project, because that would seem to be really good. I will maybe get with the mayor to find out, or Julie to find out the requirements. I mean, and ask around if I'll contact Gail and Shirley to see if they're interested in remaining. I would ask the other committee members to ask if their friends or associates would be interested in something like this. I'll get with Julie to find out if they need to be council members or just council appointments. There may be people that would be willing to serve that. I'm certainly not going to volunteer Mr. Ivy for the position.
Yeah,
Thank you.
They can be either, they can be on council as the two were that we had. They were
Okay.
both on council at the time, but
All
they
right.
don't, you don't have to be on council. That was
Okay.
just the way you
So-
supposed to do it at that time.
So I'll contact Gail and Shirley to see if their schedules allow for it. Gail, with the new responsibilities, may not feel the extra time is available. Shirley may very well be interested in serving on that board. So if we don't,
I have a question.
certainly.
Could you just give me the cliff notes for dummies of the 4 positions and what their role is? Because this is the first that I've been exposed to this. I just have no knowledge of what we're talking about.
Right.
I think
That's why-
time for that.
if that's part of why I brought it up. It really, the commitment, the level of service really is on a project by project basis. So I may get this wrong, but I think it was in the time between the hotel where we didn't have the CRA and Tim Hortons, we realized that we needed to activate that Community Reinvestment Act trait or authority to be able to have this board that we're talking about now and negotiate reductions in property taxes for commercial growth in the city. So that's the short of it.
Thank
It
you.
was first created so as to assist in the funding for the Central Hotel. That was a tiny little CRA in Uptown Galleon. And then we council, gosh, my memory is faulty, but sometime in 15 or 16, between those two events, the hotel and Tim Hortons, we realized we needed to put that in place. We've
I guess
used.
I don't understand. What do they do? What do these 4
They
people
offer-
actually
they
sit down and do?
I think the last big one was the apartment project. They convene, and the entity that wants a reduction in their property tax comes in front of that group, makes their pitch, and then that group makes a decision about the rate and term of any kind of abatement.
Oh,
So
thank you. Light bulb just went off. I think that's what I was trying to get at. Thank you very much.
Yeah. if I had said abatement at the start, I probably, but the little bit of the background, I think, in terms of the commitment is that as we have a project, when we have a project, they'll be called in and there'll be at least 1 meeting, sometimes 2 meetings, to get those approved, to get them negotiated and approved. Fair enough?
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
I could also say something, a couple of things. I know that the word abatement has a bad connotation. It's not elimination of the property taxes. And the school board is also involved in the decision-making, or at least being made aware that obviously their funding relies heavily on the property taxes. But one way to look at it, I mean, first of all, abatement means a reduction, not an elimination.
Mhm.
And that when we're in a competitive environment that all municipalities are in, there's got to be a give and take. So a reduction in property taxes and a business coming in my mind, seems to be a fair trade-off or a negotiable trade-off. as opposed to no property taxes because the business chose to build elsewhere. So, I know that recently I had a conversation at the office from a constituent that was angry at tax abatements. They happened to own a business in town and they felt that, well, they're paying their fair share. I couldn't answer him in a maybe a satisfactory way, but
Mhm.
when we are moving forward, I think we need to again reiterate that an abatement is not an elimination. And so I think it's a very important, and the fact that we expanded it to not only businesses, but if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Lear, we expanded it to residential as well, did we not?
Yeah, Doc, it applies there. And even though the apartment complex is residential, obviously, it's classified as commercial.
Right.
There's so much.
But I think it might be, I think it might apply to, maybe the housing development in the Wrenchville area, or am I overstating?
Sure, I think that isn't used. Yes, the short answer is yes.
Okay,
I would say, and each project should be negotiated on its own.
Mhm.
One of the things, just take a swing at a couple of items. One is a principle that our Galleon Housing Advisory Council came up with. And it actually was the thinking and the idea of Chad Miller. Both Chad and Eric Kent served on this group before they agreed to be on the Port Authority. And what Chad was looking at is trying to make sure that whatever parcel that the taxes before the project, what was going to be yielded after the project was done, was equal to, or in many cases, more than what it was paying. So if you're following what I'm saying, out at Mill Creek, you look at what that undeveloped parcel is taxed at, even if there's a high percent that they ask, certainly the income, or the property tax on this $1 million plus facility will be more than what it's yielding now. So I think
Right.
that's a neat concept. I wish I'd have thought of it, but that's one that they use. We used it with Andrews Dairy and Tim Hortons, and I think we've tried to apply that. At the Wrenchville property, just to try to completely answer that, that has a relatively low tax value. So if CRA projects come up, the community will still be ahead, if you will, even if it is at a reduced value.
Correct.
The other part I won't take up more time on, and that is how the property taxes impact commercial property owners. That complaint that one of your patients had with you, it's probably about 3 to 5 minutes, and I'll won't beg your indulgence, and I'll avoid going into that. But it's a little more complicated than sometimes property owners think. So that's.
and I'm sure that's why I could not answer it satisfactorily.
Yeah, I can. I don't want to say teacher, doc, I know the answer, but it is a little more complicated. It's important that whoever sits on this council that we've been talking about has a more complete understanding and will likely be able to explain to anyone, how what they're abating actually makes the pie a little bit larger. Maybe not as large as it would have been, but oftentimes I'd rather have a new project like this assisted living facility, and maybe not get all the taxes that we could have got But one thing's for sure, that we'll yield more as a community in a lot of different ways with that facility in, and property tax yield will certainly be more than what the mostly the schools, but any of the taxing jurisdictions are earning now. So
Great.
anyway, okay, that's what I had.
Any other question? Oh, Ms. Earlston?
Yeah, so does this, the CRA Housing Council then have the final say on what the abatement will be, or does that get approved then through the council or by the mayor, or is it just through the CRA?
Really good question. I think as long as it stays within certain state guidelines, they'll have the approval. I don't know. Nikki, I think, was on earlier. I'm not sure if she's still on. That's a real good question to confirm back with Thomas tomorrow, whether they have the approval. I think they do. If they exceed certain percentages, then I do know that you have to have, in our case, both Pioneer and Galleon City Schools have to sign off on it.
I remember the guidelines that we wrote up for that, but I just didn't remember if it had to be then approved.
Yeah, I don't
Pretty
either.
sure
I don't either.
the,
So maybe if Thomas Palmer's on, he can probably send a message. If he's not on this evening, then we'll get back with that answer. It's a good question.
Pretty sure the industrial ones, like all Tim Hortons and all of those, we had to approve, council did have to approve those, but not on the residential.
Yeah, the resident, you're right about that. You're right about that.
Yeah.
Residential, it's a standard. So the new houses that have gone up that are being built, they make application beforehand, and that's factored in right from the start.
Right.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
No, thank you. I'm clear. Thank you.
Julie, what is our next meeting, please?
The next meeting is a March 17th, or what day is today? 16th, March 16th.
Okay. So we'll have our next committee meeting on March 16th at 7 p.m. If there are no other items or comments, I'd like a motion for adjournment, please.
I'll make a
Ms.
motion.
Earlston makes the motion. I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry, I was on mute.
No worries. Motion carries and meeting adjourned at 7:24.
Have a
Tom,
wonderful
I'll call
night,
you
folks.
tomorrow.
See you both tomorrow night.
Okay,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you. Good night.